Welcome to Dodgers Dogs. As part of the Dodgers Daily Network, Casey Porter here. So glad that you decided to tune in. Fans, we have a super exciting show. Austin, how are you, man?
I'm doing great, Casey. Sweet hat that you got on there. I know we're repping a little bit right now. Can you want to explain a little bit what that hat is and where people can find one of those hats? Because it's pretty sweet.
Yeah. This is an Oklahoma City Comets hat, and I got this. Actually, let me put that down. I got this the other day at the Oklahoma City store at the Bricktown Ballpark. But you can order online, if you don't live in Oklahoma. There's like 3 different versions. These are game hats. So there's another version that has this light blue up here, and then the dark blue down here, and then there's an all blue, and then they have the OKC logo. I like the royal blue, the Dodger blue on top with the lighter blue on the bill. I like the color scheme better. What I was wishing is that they actually had this color scheme with the Oklahoma City logo on it. The guy at the Oklahoma City team store promised me that they would have that eventually, and so I'm looking forward to that and going to get me another hat there. You too. That is a Loons hat right there. I think I actually have you in reverse here. Let me go ahead. Right there. That is a Great Lakes Loons hat, right? That's sweet.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, this is sweet. This is one that I've had for a little. If you haven't noticed on the shows, I'm typically wearing some type of Great Lakes Loons hat, whether that's the Dodger blue with the G and the L, or whether that's the road logo on the hat. This is one, the home hat, a whole bunch of different ones that I can wear. This one I actually don't think is available, but there's a whole lot available. Loons.milbstore.com, 99837 ball. You can get yourself one of these sweet Loons hats. Highly recommend getting a Loons hat for the start of baseball season, which Loons baseball just 58 days away, which if that's 58 days away, Dodgers baseball is less than that. And talking about pitchers and catchers reporting less than a week from now, it's just super amazing. But that hat that you got right there, I'm going to have to get me one of those.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like it. So I like the color schemes of the Comets. Had a chance to talk to Alex Friedman, the AAA play-by-play voice, about that whole entire situation. So super excited for Oklahoma City Comets baseball. So what we're going to get into tonight, we're going to talk all about the bullpen. So we've heard a lot about it. You know, the latest move was Kirby Yates, and we got into the big powwow. When was it? We were on Friday night about Ryan Brazier and all that kind of stuff. So what we're going to do now is, hey, this bullpen is pretty incredible. Of course, it's all going to be determined on who is healthy, who's not. We've had conflicting reports on Michael Kopech and things like that. So what we're going to do with Austin's amazing ability to break down the analytics of things and statistics and all that kind of thing, we're actually going to go over just how good this bullpen is. Is it the best bullpen in baseball? I put a question mark. I know we've already had a comment that should have been an exclamation point. And so, Austin, what do you think? I mean, just your initial thoughts. We'll get into the nitty-gritty of all the guys in the pen and compare them to some of the other teams, but just your initial thoughts.
Yeah, so initially from the way that this Dodgers bullpen is now being constructed, I think it is constructed particularly with the strength of the Dodgers system, the strength of their development, and how they, not only that, but how they want to go ahead and attack pitchers. When I look at this team and I look at the types of arms that they brought in, along with the type of arms that they have in-house, it is a lot of power guys. It is a lot of guys that can generate a whole lot of swing and miss. And I think that can lead to a lot of different success throughout the course of the postseason, throughout those different environments to where you don't have to rely on the defense. I look at the Dodgers bullpen and what they're able to do. There's an insane amount of potential with the arms that they have right now, given their past performances. In some of the most recent years that the Dodgers have had, they've had to rely on a lot of different guys that they've brought in, whether that's guys that are coming up through the minor league system or whether those are guys that they bring in for a couple of weeks, then later designate for them for assignment. They are certainly going to do that. But the goal for this Dodgers team is to make these arms as talented and as effective as they possibly can be during October. And I think as we look through the course of some of the numbers, some of the regular season statistics might not be 100% spectacular, just talking about the 2024 Dodgers. But when you're talking about the Dodgers of the future, and particularly what they're aiming for. Their goal is not to have these guys go out there and be the best pitchers through the course of the regular season. Although that would be amazing, they would rather have those guys be the best pitchers they possibly can be during October. And I think if you look at the upside and some of the performances just on an individualized basis and the upside of what each of these players are able to do, I think it's pretty spectacular what they have. And I would take this Dodgers bullpen with just about anybody. There's a lot of good bullpens in the game of baseball. This Dodgers bullpen with the arms that they have right now is absolutely incredible.
So what bullpens would you even compare to it?
Yeah, so the couple of the bullpens that would be relatively comparable, and this is just going off of last year, the most dominant bullpen in the game of baseball last year, which if you're talking about the Dodgers, which their relievers had, I believe, a 3.53 ERA last year, and almost a full run less was the Cleveland Guardians and their bullpen. And that was led by one of the most dominant, even in fact, the most dominant closer in the game of baseball, Emmanuel Clase. They had a couple of their youngsters really take a full step forward out of the bullpen, which was really, really good for them and allowed them to be as successful as they possibly could be. It's still a little bit of a question of, are they going to continue to take those steps forward? And can Emmanuel Clase be as dominant as he was? Some of the other bullpens that were in the same relative category last year, ERA-wise, whereas a team like Milwaukee, which if you talk about Milwaukee, they did lose a Devin Williams to the New York Yankees, although they have some young guy by the name of Craig Yoho who's coming up. Should be pretty fun for them. Atlanta had a pretty solid bullpen last year. Detroit had a pretty solid bullpen. All of these, the Dodgers were in relative competition results-wise for them through the course of 162. And this is without a Tanner Scott. This is without a person like a Kirby Yates. This is with missing some of their guys for a majority of the season. That's just putting you into the relative ballpark of where the Dodgers sit with some of these other teams or some of the other bullpens that could be really fun as well.
Yeah, and this is going to be a bullpen that, 3-4 guys could be closers on anybody else's team.
Yeah.
Blake Trinan is he might be like the fourth in line to get the last 3 outs, and he would be first. Heck, he got the last 3 outs of the World Series, right? So take us through some of the highest leverage arms and just kind of explain just exactly how elite these guys are. This isn't – whenever we talk about just the celebration of getting these guys and the roster that's been constructed, it's hard really to over-exaggerate. I know it sounds like we kind of are, but it's hard to over-exaggerate just how good they are. So take us through some of these guys. I'll throw up their numbers. You want me to put up FanGraphs or just their MLB.com numbers, Austin?
Oh, it doesn't matter to you. You can put up whatever you think is the best. What's unique about the Dodgers bullpen, and this is something that not every bullpen has, nor is it something that the Dodgers have had the luxury of having. I remember over the course of the past couple of seasons, we talked particularly about a guy like Evan Phillips. What is the best role for him? Is he the 9th inning guy, or is he a guy that can come in during the highest leverage spot during the 7th or 8th inning? He might not be the guy, and probably is not going to be the guy the Dodgers turn to first during those high leverage innings, although he is 100% capable of doing so. Right now, the Dodgers, if you look through their high leverage relievers, they have 5 to 6 guys that you could argue as being high leverage relievers, those being the 2 additions of Tanner Scott and Kirby Yates. We've talked about them quite a bit. We'll just mention Tanner Scott just briefly, just because he is the highest profile Dodger reliever that we will be covering and we will be talking about quite a bit, because I think he's going to get a good chunk of those closer type innings just because of how dominant and how effective that he has been over the course of the past couple of seasons. His swing and miss stuff is really, really good, really special for what he is able to do. Talk about it in previous years. It's in the 30 percentile coming out of the left-handed arm of his. All of the expected numbers are really solid. The average exit velocity is 100th percentile in the game of baseball, 86 for strikeout rate. He also generates a lot of different ground balls, which is the preferred outcome if hitters are going to make contact. And when they do make contact, it's weak contact. That is a key element of a lot of these Dodgers relievers that they go ahead and target. Tanner Scott is going to take a bump of those. Last year, even despite having, especially early in the season, a lot of issues with throwing strikes, he was walking a ton of hitters during the first month or so of the season, still ended up with a 1.75 ERA. Just ridiculous what he's able to do. All Dodgers fans know what Tanner Scott was doing and was able to do against Shohei Ohtani last year during the playoffs. Now, this year, during the postseason, they don't have to worry about that, and they can leverage this arm to go out and get some of the highest paid left-handed bats out there and some of the best left-handed bats in the game of baseball. Tanner Scott is an elite weapon to have.
Ooh, let me make this correction. Why do I keep saying? I think I've said it like 8 times now. Blake Trinan did not get the last 3 outs. Let me click this back over. My bad on that deal. How can I not remember that? I mean, how can I get that wrong? Walker Buehler, man, the Buehler dog got the last 3 outs.
Yes,
Austin,
he did.
You should have just reached through the screen and slapped me silly on that one. That's just a really dumb mistake to make right there. But yes, no. But still, the same point on Blake Trinan. It still exists that he is a guy that you would trust to get the last 3 outs of a very, 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 very important game. So Tanner Scott, no doubt about it, he's going to get the last 3 outs several different times. Absolutely awesome. Had a hot take on him yesterday, his journey. So where are we going to go next, Austin?
Yeah, let's just continue to go with the new arms because a lot of Dodgers fans are familiar with the other arms that the Dodgers have. But Kirby Yates, there's a reason why they decided to bring him in, which, by the way, have to give a congratulations to Ryan Brazier, the newest Chicago Cub. He is going to be joining the likes of a Michael Busch over there in Chicago. I'm extremely happy for
Yency
Ryan.
Almonte?
Yeah, Yency Almonte went over to Chicago as well. So I'm super excited for Ryan and hope that he has a ton of success with Chicago. And the Dodgers in that trade got either cash considerations or a player to be named later. Still kind of up in the air as far as what they'll actually end up getting. That will be decided at a later date. The team has announced. So super happy for him. But he was pushed out of the bullpen specifically because the Dodgers felt like they were best suited going out and getting another high leverage arm like a Kirby Yates, which Ryan Brazier pitched a lot of really good innings. And as Casey and I have stated, we have nothing bad to say about Ryan Brazier at all. Kirby Yates just pitches in those late innings and is one of the pitchers, especially with what he did last year and what he's done throughout his career, that you want to give the ball to during the late innings. He, with his stuff, is able to generate a lot of swing and miss. Last year, with his swing and miss, was basically 36% strikeout percentage, which at the major league level is ridiculous to be able to do. He does not give up hard contact as well. Another one of those guys, similar to Tanner Scott, when batters are hitting the ball, they're not hitting the ball hard. So you're not necessarily worried as much about the batted ball contact, which led to there not being a whole lot of home runs for Kirby Yates. Last year put up a 1.17 ERA. Some of the expected numbers, the expected ERA is under 1.86. So even if that jumps up to maybe 2.5, something like that, which would be a little bit on the unexpected side or a little bit on the higher side, still very reasonable for him to be able to have those type of numbers. Would be really effective to be able to have at the back end of your bullpen. And with the numbers that he was able to put up last year, had 33 different saves. He is a guy that you could also rely upon during the high leverage moments to close out a game, to where if you wanted to, you could have a platoon split depending on the matchups of a Tanner Scott and Kirby Yates going in the 9th inning to close games, depending on which matchups favor the hitters that you're going against. So whether you're facing a lot of lefties in the lineup, whether you're facing a lot of righties, how they each match up with the individual pitcher. There's a lot of options that the Dodgers have, and I think that's the good thing about having both Yates and Tanner Scott in this bullpen.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, just having the different side of arms too is a big deal as far as that goes. So, and then also, we talked about with Ryan Brazier, the Dodgers, he had been released by the Red Sox, and so they got him for absolutely nothing.
Yes.
Signed on a minor league contract, got a good enough year out of him to where they re-signed him, got the good playoff performance out of him last year in the bullpen game. And so you went from this, the Dodgers are so good at this. It's like flipping homes, right? You go and you get this player and you get him for basically nothing, which is what the Dodgers did, a minor league contract. And then you flip him, and then whatever the Dodgers get back, whether it's $1 in cash or if it's whatever prospect it might be, that whatever they get back for him is surplus, because they literally gave up nothing to get Ryan Brazier. So that's kind of another. I'm gonna have a show Sunday where I talk about going back all the way like to the trade scenarios with Mookie Betts and all those, how the Dodgers have actually built this roster a lot more than people think. This looks like it's more bought than built, but whenever you actually go back and you look at all the different trade moves and pieces like Brazier and Phillips, and then Yency Almonte, Chris Martin, even like a Blake Trinan and people, Anthony Bonda, Alex Vesia, people like that. This has been an organization. Then going all the way back to Chris Taylor, Max Muncy. Don't forget, they did not get drafted by the Dodgers, but they were developed and they became Chris Taylor and Max Muncy with the Dodgers. The same goes with Austin Barnes, who caught the last pitch of the 2020 World Series. So I'm going to have a whole entire show on Sunday about how this entire organization was built through great trades that allowed them to be able to be aggressive in the free agency market, sprinkled in with trading the right prospects, sprinkled in with having contract. Here's another deal. I've talked about this several different times. That's very underrated about the Ryan Brazier situation, is that at $4.5 million, another club was willing to take him off of your roster, right? Mm-hmm. Off of your payroll. Whereas if you had signed a contract like the Padres have done and signed a contract that wasn't any good, then nobody else would have taken that player off, and you just would have had to eat the money and just sit there with that player. But because the Dodgers, with all of the players on the margins, have signed such intelligent contracts, they've created flexibility through the DFA situation, not as much through the farm system, but they've created the flexibility through the DFA situation, because as soon as they DFA a guy within that 7-day window, they always get taken. James Paxton's another one. Brian Hudson's another one. That Chris Martin, just on Yency Almonte, I know is in trade, but the Cubs really wanted him. And I mean, think about how the Dodgers turned around Yency Almonte, okay? They got Yency Almonte just like they did Ryan Brazier. After he'd been released, they signed him to a minor league contract. They gave him that they ditched the 2-seam originally, went with the 4-seam, gave him that sweeper, turned him around. And if you go 1-for-1, Jackson Ferris, Zaire Hope for Michael Busch and Yency Almonte, I think anybody would take Jackson Ferris for Yency Almonte or Zaire Hope at this point. So we're going to kind of cover all those situations, how the Dodgers have done such a great job in those scenarios, building just a dynasty as far as the roster goes.
Yes, no, all of that is really good. Just two quick thoughts on that, because I don't want to have too much of this discussion. I want to leave a lot of discussion for you. Player development matters, not just at the minor league level, but also at the major league level. See Chris Taylor, Max Muncy as prime examples of that. And then also taking care of detail opens up opportunities. Making sure that you have player development in the minor leagues opened up opportunities to go out and target a player like a Mookie Betts, which is amazing to be able to have. And the Dodgers have excelled at both of those, and they've leveraged those opportunities to get some of the best players in the game of baseball.
They have. So, hey, we have a great crowd logging in. Jeremy Bird, thank you so much for joining. Of course, on the thumbnail, it says Dodgers best bullpen in baseball with a question mark. And Jeremy Bird thinks that it should be an exclamation point, that there's no doubt. We're going to continue our talk about the bullpen, but we're going to bob and weave into different conversations as well. Daniel Berry, Sports Highlight, thank you so much for joining. BC, Justin Lamas. It is 2 a.m. in France where Justin's at, and Justin is kind enough to join us here on Dodgers Dogs as part of the Dodgers Daily Network. Craig Osterberg good evening to yourself, sir, and CNAB, Christopher Navarro, our rock star. I thought I had, hold on one second here. Well, yeah, I have CNAB as a moderator. I'm not sure why it's not showing up and he's not getting that cogwheel on there. Hey, Chuck Huddleston, good evening to yourself. Thank you so much for joining. Dorothy Gale already has a question, firing A-level questions right off the bat, and that is, all these moves are great, yes, but what about Kiké?
It is a really good question as far as the Dodgers. Obviously, Dodger Fest happened this past weekend, and Andrew Friedman made the comment that the door never is really closed for Kiké for this team. And I think that's probably true for the Dodgers. If I had to guess, and this is something that I've discussed on my previous shows, something that I would guess would be our take, may not be the right decision in our eyes as far as what the Dodgers should do, but I think the likely move, given the past history of the Dodgers, is I think they're probably likely to bring back Kiké Hernandez. Doesn't mean that he won't sign to another team, or doesn't mean that it's 100% going to happen. But if I had to guess based on past decisions and the organization, I think Kiké Hernandez is probably back onto this team. Now, that will severely limit opportunities for the three guys that we've been talking about for weeks at this point, for Andy Pages, for James Outman, and for a Hae-Sung Kim. It's going to very severely limit those opportunities if you add Kiké into this mix. You could make it work for one of those guys, but then you're waiting for some type of injury. I think another key factor, something that we haven't really discussed a whole lot, something that we're expecting him to be ready for the start of opening day, but is a player like a Freddie Freeman going to be ready for the start of opening day? That could complicate some things, and they want to add another bat in there, a major league regular type of bat that's been with this organization for quite a while. If it's a little bit more up in the question because Freddie Freeman's not going to be at the start of opening day, and they don't want to completely rush him into the major leagues as much as Freddie Freeman wants to be rushed, that could lead to a decision where the Dodgers want to bring back a Kiké Hernandez and add a little bit of flexibility for a player like a Max Muncy to play a little bit of first base if Freddie Freeman needs him to play a little bit of first base. So my expectation would be that they would bring back Kiké Hernandez. I still think that the Dodgers need to prioritize at-bats to some of the younger players at some point, but based on my expectation and based on the comments, I think that's likely the direction that the Dodgers are going to go.
Yeah. I also hear another comment that, of course, and I'm not necessarily totally not in that boat, but I am for one reason, and that I've heard, hey, I don't care if Shohei Ohtani pitches. And the problem is, let me go ahead and click this over so you can kind of see here. See if I can get this. See if I can get this full screened here. Let's see. Right there. Okay, so here is the roster. Of course, I have not updated this. I think I still have Brazier on there. Yeah, I still have Brazier on there right there. But, okay, so the problem with if you don't pitch Ohtani, right, what Ohtani allows you to do is it gives you that 14th spot, correct? So if you look on this roster, this still does not. So if you were to replace eventually like Clayton Kershaw on here instead of Ryan Brazier, the problem if you don't pitch Shohei Ohtani is that then you have to go back to only carrying 13 pitchers. And with the amount of pitching that you've accumulated, if you go back to that 13th spot and then you add a Clayton Kershaw, the math doesn't work. I mean, just simply put, right here, you're at 15 with Kershaw, you're at 14 without him. And if Shohei Ohtani doesn't add that 14th spot, if you're only at 13, you are already one over with everybody on this roster. So one of the three between Alex Vesia, Tony Gonsolin, and Roki Sasaki have to go down to AAA Oklahoma City, and that absolutely is not happening. So I think it's absolutely mandatory that Shohei Ohtani become a pitcher and pitch enough to keep the distinction of being a pitcher so the Dodgers can keep that 14th pitching spot, which allows you to have eventually Clayton Kershaw. And then right now, if you remove Brazier, that puts you at 14. You're totally full. And so that you still don't have that last up-down spot available for anybody to move up from AAA. So my only argument, as far as from a strategic perspective, and hey, would you rather Ohtani just concentrate on hitting? Would he be a better baseball player if he did that? Yeah, I don't disagree with that part of the argument, but I do think that the 14th pitching spot is such a valuable situation that the Dodgers can't do without it.
Yeah, so here's how I think of it. One, I totally get the argument, and I totally get a lot of the concern with Shohei Ohtani, because you want Shohei Ohtani to be on the field, and if he's on the mound, there might be a little bit of a higher risk that he might not be on the field. I think the Dodgers lineup there is built to where they can live with at least a little bit of that risk. And here's the argument to where this comes into fold. With Shohei Ohtani, to have 14 pitchers on your roster, it only exists because Shohei Ohtani exists. Correct. Shohei Ohtani is the bonus pitcher.
Yes.
Part of the reason why they paid $700 million to go out and get Shohei Ohtani was not just because he would make up a lot of that money with all of the marketing, with all of the revenue that he would bring in, although that played a huge part. One of the strategic reasons why they did it is because it allows them to have something that no other team has, the ability to have a 14th roster spot. And this is really important because Shohei Ohtani is the 14th pitcher. Shohei Ohtani is the bonus pitcher. If 14 pitchers on your roster does not work without Shohei Ohtani or a player like Shohei Ohtani. And as we've seen, these players do not grow on trees. It is uniquely special what he's able to do. So having that ability to have that 14th pitcher on the staff with Shohei Ohtani is such an advantage to your team. And I think this is one of the things that makes this roster work, especially since the Dodgers want to transition to a 6-man rotation.
Yes.
If you have a 6-man rotation, part of the math that you have to calculate is you either need to have a lot of different relievers, which in the game of baseball with roster construction, you could have a very limited set of relievers. For most teams, if you have a 6-man rotation, it would just be 7 relievers. The Dodgers have the luxury with Shohei Ohtani being that 6th starter, that 14th pitcher, to have 8 different relievers. That is a luxury to be able to have. And in order to be able to make a 6-man rotation work with just 13 different pitchers, you can't have 7 guys in your bullpen that are just 1-inning guys. That math is not going to work out because those 1-inning guys who do not have minor league options are going to get worn out throughout the course of the season. So
it's robbing Peter to pay Paul. Even if you have multiple inning guys, you're still robbing innings from somebody.
Yes.
And you're not adding an extra pitcher is what I'm saying.
Yes.
The same innings with the same amount of pitchers. Yeah.
So I think most Dodgers fans want to see a 6-man rotation because they want, especially for guys like a Roki Sasaki, guys like a Yoshi Yamamoto, these guys that are used to pitching once a week or some sort type of schedule like that. They want them to be as comfortable as they can be and be as effective as they possibly can be. What Shohei Ohtani allows you to do is adds another guy that can go out there and through the course of a week, eat 5 or 6 innings, which is incredibly valuable if you're the Los Angeles Dodgers, and especially with Shohei Ohtani, who is really solid when he's on the mound. I think it's going to be an absolute treat. Totally understand the argument. Totally understand I'm concerned and don't want anything to happen, especially because we've seen a lot of injuries happen, but we've seen Shohei Ohtani have the ability to be able to do this in the past, and he was still really, really good when he was with the Angels, and he was both pitching and he was both hitting. And I think it's going to be absolutely exciting and a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity during this stretch where Shohei Ohtani is going to be pitching and hitting at the exact same time to be able to witness that Dodgers fans. So I think it's going to be really exciting, but strategically, the only way 14 pitchers works is with Shohei Ohtani. He is the 14th pitcher, and that's why he's so valuable.
So how many bullpen arms do you usually have?
You usually, in a traditional bullpen, would have 8 with a 5-man rotation.
Yes. So 8. So just kind of some really simple math here. So typically speaking, you have 8 bullpen arms, right? 5 starters. Okay. So when you have Shohei Ohtani, how many starters do you have with Shohei Ohtani?
With Shohei Ohtani, you can have 6 different starters.
And how many bullpen arms?
And 8 bullpen arms.
Yes. That's where the Dodgers have to pitch Shohei Ohtani, because it gives them that extra pitcher spot that they have to have because, again, their roster is so full that they're having to cut people like Ryan Brazier. And as it stands right now, take him off that list. That's 14. If you take Ohtani off that list, okay, as far as him not being that 14th pitcher, so if Ohtani doesn't count as that 14th pitcher, then who are you going to take off this list? That is the biggest problem you have. Then how are you going to get Clayton Kershaw on that list? Then how are you going to get innings for anybody at the minor leagues if like a Bobby Miller or Landon Knack or anybody like that? So again, I just kind of to sum it back up as far as some of our comments that we started with on this, I totally get the baseball aspect of it where, hey, Ohtani, I'm good with him just hitting, to heck with the pitching, all that kind of thing. I get that argument, but it just doesn't work from a mathematical perspective the way that this roster, pitching-wise, the Dodgers need to have a six-man rotation, and the only way that's going to – and they've also – you can't go get a Kirby Yates and a Tanner Scott and re-sign Blake Trinan and all this and then say, well, we're also not going to pitch Shohei Ohtani, so we're going to lose a roster spot. It just it can't work like that. Right.
And another thing to be able to think about, as we had mentioned, Shohei Ohtani, let's just say that he pitches once a week, as once he gets back into the rotation, pitches 5 different innings. You know what that's 5 innings that doesn't go to? That's 5 innings that don't go towards wearing out the bullpen.
I was going to say that.
5 innings that don't go towards like a Tyler Glasnow pitching an extra day or some of these other really good starting pitchers. Yes, you'd like to see them pitch, but you also don't want to wear those arms out in October. I think this is another strategic play to where they get an extra arm that's limiting some of the damage that some of the other arms are taking, some of the wear and tear. And that's going to be, I think that's one of the most fascinating things about the Dodgers this upcoming season is how do they limit the wear and tear and how do they navigate that? Because on the outset, with a lot of these guys not having minor league options and knowing that they pitched a lot in past October, if they try to go full steam ahead, could be a strategy that they try to do, but it's also an incredibly risky one in order for them to be effective in October. And they know that. And so how they navigate that is going to be fascinating.
Yeah, I can't find the comment again here, but the way that so the Dodgers have tried everything. We've seen it up close and personal, Austin. Mm-hmm. They've tried, like with Clayton Beeter, 2 innings at a time, and then they've tried spreading out days. They've tried everything they can from a scheduling perspective to try to protect arms. Guess what? Nothing has worked, correct? So the big question Andrew Friedman got was, hey, as far as the end of last year, what are you going to do about all these arm injuries? And he's like, you know what? I don't know. I'm going to have to think about it. I'm going to have to study about it. And to me, basically, based on what the Dodgers are doing, his answer has been, there really is no answer if you want to be an organization that believes in high velo and high spin rate and that kind of thing, other than just have as many pitchers on your roster as you possibly can be. So the comment on here, when I find it again, I will give credit to, right here, Don't Care 187. The cheat code here is the 14th pitcher. That is the plan to keep everybody on a workload that will maximize now it doesn't guarantee that they'll stay healthy, but it does maximize the ability and opportunity for them to stay healthy. So I do think that 14th pitcher is definitely the cheat code for the Dodgers. So again, we have a great crowd logging in, and we have a great crowd on Instagram right now. We are all over every platform. This is what I've been working on for a long time. My YouTube went nuts on me on Sunday. It sent off 2 different Brian Pepio videos, and I was not even working on my Dodgers Daily YouTube page. I was working on my O-State Daily YouTube page, and so I've been trying to I think I finally figured out the bug to that, and we have not had any of that tonight. So we have a great crowd logging in, including several players that are in the Dodgers organization. Now, that doesn't mean they're watching right now, but they're popping in and out. So if you want to know why we try to conduct business on Dodgers Dogs as part of the Dodgers Daily Network in the way that would suffice as far as the Dodgers organization, that's why, because you have people in this organization that pop in and out all the time. But Veteran Rock 2, thank you so much for joining on Instagram. So Veteran Rock 2 says not even close, absolutely best pen in baseball. Plus, with guys returning from injury, it's going to get even better. Can't wait to see Dustin May. Anxious to see Emmett Sheehan as well. And then also, if Gratterall can get back healthy, the sky is the limit. And then Veteran Rock 2 wants to remind everybody about Bobby Miller. Again, I know you mentioned that you made a great comment about Andy Paz this time last year, Austin, and that there was a little bit of prospect fatigue. You had heard the name Andy Paez since about 2019, and it was like, oh, I've heard this name a million different times and haven't seen him yet and this and that. Bobby Miller's been that guy. You've been Bobby Miller, Bobby Miller, Bobby Miller, Bobby Miller, right? And then he comes up and he's not great. So it would be easy to get fatigued with the name Bobby Miller. But you got to back up and remember, there's only a certain amount of human beings on earth that can do to a baseball what he can do. And then go back to the Tanner Scott journey and almost the Jesus Luzardo journey, almost every one of these guys' journeys, and realize that, hey, everybody's timetable is different. And whenever you can throw a ball 102 miles an hour, you are going to continue to get chances at the major league level. And at some point, you would have to think it would click.
One of the reasons why we preach patience is because every player's timetable is different, and their player development is very different for each one of these different players. Each one of these guys that is part of the system has incredible tools that has the ability to be able to reach the major leagues. It's about being able to find that consistency. And some of the things that we don't know is what's going on behind the scenes. What was going on behind the scenes during 2024 for Bobby Miller that turned a 2023 season that was filled with such promise, that he was relied upon in a lot of big moments. I believe started a playoff game for the Dodgers in 2023.
And did okay. Yeah,
and
not great.
Yeah, not great, but it was fine for Bobby Miller, to where 2024 season was a bit of a disappointment, to say the least. He had, I believe there's one start where he looked really good. A lot of the other ones didn't look as good. Was there other stuff going on? I don't know the answer to that, and I think he would know the answer to that. One of the things that Casey and I will point out is you look at the stuff, and the same promise that was there in 2023 is still in Bobby Miller in 2025. And I think he still has a lot of those exact same tools, those pitches, those things that have let him be as dominant as he has been in the past is still at his disposal. Be patient. It's going to be about opportunity. Will the Dodgers provide him or find a way to get him an opportunity in 2025? And then we'll see what he has as far as ability to be able to run with it. There have been pitchers, there have been Hall of Fame pitchers that in some of their early years or some of their couple years after into the season have not gone great. But then they found their way and they were able to find their way to become extremely effective. Not to say that Bobby Miller is or will ever be a Hall of Famer, but he's got an incredible amount of talent. And I'm excited to see what he is going to be able to do this upcoming season and what adjustments that he made during the offseason, or if he's just healthy. If he's just healthy during this entire season, I think that can make a big difference for Bobby Miller.
Yeah, you just absolutely nailed that. I was going to say, whenever you got done, that let's not forget he has not been healthy. Just go back to my interview I did with him. Heck, I think it was like the beginning of August. I mean, it was really late last year, and he was just then getting ramped up to get going. He got ramped up late in 2023. He got ramped up real late last year. So not only is he trying to adjust to the major leagues, he's trying to adjust on a team with Shohei Ohtani and Blake Snell. Of course, last year was Glass now. He's trying to do, I'm just telling you, the guys are trying to adjust to the major league level, and it is a circus, man. I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way in any way, shape, or form. It's just, it's got that circus atmosphere to it because it's just so exciting. So you're trying to adjust to that. And then also, we saw, well, how good is Walker Buehler, right? Walker Buehler, he's pretty good?
Oh, he's pretty good. He was the one who got the last 3 outs of the World Series, Case.
Yeah. So Walker Buehler will tell you, yes, yeah, that's right. I still can't believe it. I had like 8 people correct me on that, and please do. Next time, just slap me silly. Okay, So Walker Buehler, pretty good. I think we're all going to agree with that. Mm-hmm. And how good was Walker Buehler for the first, 2 months off of his injury?
Oh, off of his injury this past season? He was in Oklahoma City, and he wasn't getting anybody out.
Yeah, absolutely. So if Walker Buehler can't do that coming off of injury, then why would we expect Bobby Miller to do that? It's kind of my point. Are you seeing what I'm saying here? I mean, those are fairly unrealistic expectations to think. But Walker Buehler will tell you, however long you are out. Matter of fact, who was it I was talking about that said this exact quote about Walker Buehler about a week or two ago? They point blank said about Walker Buehler, however long you're out, that's how long it takes you to actually not as far as physicalness. I mean, your arm feels fine, but to get actually to be back to the type of pitcher you're capable of being, it takes you equal amount of time once you get back to get comfortable and get back on top of your game as you were out. So if you're out, say 6 months, it's going to take you 6 months to get back on top of your game. So Bobby Miller for the last 2 years has said, hey kid, here's the ball. You got about 5 starts to get ready. Good luck, right? And so, the press happened, and I'm not trying to make excuses because it is what it is. This is a Dodgers organization. Coach Barrakoff says it the best. This is a continual, you have to show me now. This is a produced now organization, and it has to stay that way because we all want to win World Series. So I totally get that. But I am explaining the situation that Bobby Miller still has the ability to be an elite pitcher at the major league level. Now, will he ever have the opportunity to be able to settle in? That's the question I have. It doesn't look like it at the moment, but if you were to ask me if Bobby Miller was given good health, a full bill of health, and unlimited runway to reach his potential like Tanner Scott got, right? I mean, Tanner Scott got 5 years of runway to become just a good major leaguer. If you were to tell me you give Bobby Miller the correct amount of runway to get comfortable as a major leaguer and full health, I would bet a lot of money on Bobby Miller becoming a very much so upper echelon pitcher. Now, again, I'm going to say it. The Dodgers don't have that opportunity for him. So where does a guy like that fit in? He has to hit the ground running. He has not been able to do that. That is the adjustment he has to make. Hey, I get it. You need more runway. I get it that it's very tough and all these other guys get the runway and all this, but that's not your situation. Your situation is we have limited opportunities, so when you actually get an opportunity, you have to take advantage of it and you have to hit the ground running. I don't know what else to tell you other than that's the situation you're in. And if you want to pitch for the Dodgers, that's what you have to do.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how he responds to that. This time last year, a roster spot and a rotation spot was his for the taking, and the expectations was that he's going to fulfill that role. You look at the organization and the starting pitchers that they have now, he's what, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th in line as far as the order of the number of starters that they have currently on this roster. He is going to be a pitcher that's going to be chasing after something. And I'm excited to see what the Bobby Miller, especially if he's healthy, Bobby Miller as a chasing after a roster spot type of pitcher, because we've seen the swag that he has on there. We've seen the electric fastball that he has. Having that while also trying to be motivated to get to that major league level could be exactly the attitude that he needs in order to make that next step, if he is given the opportunity at some point, which right now does not look like there's going to be an opportunity for him, given that everybody is healthy. But his stuff is going to present him with some additional opportunities this upcoming season. And believe me, he will pitch for the Dodgers at some point during the 2025 season. And I'm excited to see how he responds, just because I know there is a ton of potential in his arm. And if he's able to unlock it, that's just another weapon that the Dodgers can have. And then that's going to lead to, oh man, what do we do with all of how do we fit him into this roster? And how do we fit him into future rosters as well when people like a Gavin Stone get healthy? Different conversation for along the road, but it's for Bobby Miller to make that an interesting conversation with how he's able to respond this upcoming season. I hope that he's healthy, and I hope that he is able to respond like I know he can respond.
Yeah. And again, I just can't reiterate it enough. I know it's very difficult to have to come in and not have time and feel like if I don't throw well today, I'm going back to Oklahoma City tomorrow. Too bad. I mean, it's what it is. This is the roster the Dodgers have, and that's just is what it is. So, again, I'm just going to, as much as we love the prospects, Austin, the only advice that, and we're massively an outsider. I mean, don't get me wrong to think that we're giving advice to anybody, but But just from us saying, the only advice you can give somebody is, guys, this is the amount of opportunity that you have. If you get an opportunity on that roster, be thankful for it and figure out where your feet are at that day and learn how to perform wherever your feet are at and hit the ground running. That's literally the only bit of advice. So that kind of brings up a question. If the Dodgers do figure out a way, we have a question here. Do you think the Dodgers will maybe fake some injuries to the starters to get some of these up-down guys? Is that the plan for that 14th spot, is to leave it all to major league guys that don't have minor league options or guys that you're not going to send down, but figure out a way to get the Bobby Millers and the Landon Knacks to LA through injury? Is that the plan, you think? I mean, is that even feasible?
It might have to be the plan because there's going to be stretches of the season, which I haven't looked thoroughly at the calendar, but there's going to be stretches of the season where you have 10, 11 games in a row. And how you get through those 10, 11 games in a row, especially with the roster as currently constructed, which I think this is the best case scenario for the Dodgers if they have to make these types of decisions or try to figure out decisions based off of this, because that's assuming that all the pitchers that are on your roster are actually healthy. I think that would be ideal for the Dodgers to have to look for something. Okay, this guy could use a little bit of rest. He's going to go on the injured list for a little bit. Honestly, I have no idea how they're going to be able to move guys around up and down, because the guys that they do have the ability to move up and down, I'm not anticipating, unless something really goes awry, that they're going to move those guys. Alex Vesia, I don't believe he's going to spend a lot of time in Oklahoma City unless he's rehabbing. Again. Tony Gonsolin, not going to spend a lot of time in Oklahoma City unless he's rehabbing. Roki Sasaki, very likely not going to spend a whole lot of time, or at least the expectation is he's going to be at the major league roster. And I believe that basically, if everybody is healthy, fills up your 26-man or your 13 pitchers that you're able to have on your roster at the start of the season, not even including a Shohei Ohtani and a Clayton Kershaw.
Yes.
They will have to be creative with how they go about finding ways to be able to move guys onto this roster. That could be through a lot of people on the injured list, and that's probably going to be a lot of that throughout the course of the season. They're going to have to be strategic because they're also going to have to worry about the workloads. One of the things that they have to think about and probably are deciphering is, okay, what type of pitch limits or what type of innings limits potentially do we want to set to make sure that we're not overworking these guys before October? Let's say that they're dealt a good hand of health through the course of the regular season this season. You don't want that to run out into October, and how they strategically go about that. It's going to be interesting. I would say that that is not off the table, given that they do not currently have any flexibility, although baseball happens and usually they don't have to fake injuries in order to find room to be able to make it work on this roster. And that is an unfortunate reality. I hope it comes to they have to put somebody on some sort of phantom injury list, but I also don't know for what this organization is going to do.
Yeah. So you made a very important correction there. I don't even know if you realize you corrected me on something. So earlier so if Ohtani's not that 14th pitcher, then Ohtani's also not listed as a pitcher. So if Ohtani's not listed as a pitcher and you take Brazier off of there, that gets you down to your 13. And so then as soon as Ohtani becomes your 14th pitcher, then he is 14. So as it sits right now, the Dodgers are exactly at the number they need. Do I have that correct, Austin?
I believe so.
They're at 13 without Ohtani. They're at 14 with Ohtani. Mm-hmm. Right?
I believe so, yes.
That's where they're at right here. And then we have a $20 super chat from CNAB, our rock star, split 10 and 10. Clayton Kershaw was not very good when he came up. He, like Bobby Miller, had electric stuff. Keep throwing him out there and let him rip. Hey, it's time for Dodgers baseball. Thank you so much for that awesome super chat there, CNAB. So kind of an interesting question. Bobby Miller obviously is very talented, and he has the electric stuff. But as far as starters go, which one do you think gets the pecking order? Is Bobby Miller first? If you do go on the 6-day IL, is it Bobby Miller first? Is it Landon Knacks? Is it Ben Kasparius? Is it Justin Robleski? Which one of those guys comes up first?
Dude, I have no clue.
Yeah.
How am I supposed to know with that? We saw a lot of Landon Knack last year, so he might be the one that might be one of. We obviously got to pitch a lot during the postseason as well, and was really a rock to be able to provide innings for this club. It could be based off of a need type basis. If they want to look for a guy that's going to give you several different innings, maybe it's to a Landon Knack. We also saw Ben Casparius perform incredibly well last season. That could be an avenue that they go down. There's a lot of different arms. Landon Knack is what you're seeing right now. And I think a lot of Dodgers fans are forgetting just how good he was during the course of the regular season, or just how reliable he was to be able to help bridge this Dodgers rotation to October, and then being there on the postseason roster as well. He was really good. He was really solid last year. So I have no clue who they would turn to. They have a lot of different options, and with a lot of different options, it means you can go based on who's pitching well at the moment, who's doing good, or depending on. And I think this is probably a little bit more realistic at times, especially if it's hey, we need somebody quick. It could be order in the rotation. Who hasn't pitched in the past couple of days? Yeah. Could be whichever. Good thing with the Dodgers is they'll have several different guys that they could potentially turn to if that's the case. So they have a lot of really good options, and even some of the other guys, like a Robo, he still has an insane amount of potential with what he's got. And I've seen him pitch at some of his best, and I think his stuff is really, really good. So I think he would be another good option to turn to. And then we'll see what happens. So they have a lot of really good options. I don't think it's necessarily great for the development of each one of these guys, because I'd prefer them to get developed at the major league level, but they do have good options to be able to turn to when needed. And it's going to be a when needed, not if needed.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. Do you think, so you're willing to make the statement, but if I were to say Bobby Miller, Ben Casparius, Landon Knack, Justin Robleski, Edgardo Henriquez, Michael Grove, okay, those guys are all likely to start at Oklahoma City. Mm-hmm. You're willing to say that you think all seven, I think I counted seven there, seven of those guys will get time in LA this year?
Yes. We saw
what about when Emmett Sheehan comes back?
They will find a way 162 games is a long season, and they're going to have to turn to different guys throughout the course of the season. Last year, or the past two seasons, I think the Dodgers threw 20 or 40 different pitchers, or close to 40 different pitchers they turn to. And you look up and down this roster, I don't see any of these guys, or a lot of these guys, that they're going to want to designate for assignment. And that, I don't think that's an avenue that they're going to pursue too often. They might have one or two guys that they bring in, designate for them for assignment just to fill in some innings. But I think they're going to, because they have a lot of talent, and if they're pitching well down at the minor league levels, would turn to a lot of these different guys. I think all of these guys that you had mentioned, and a lot of just about all the guys that are currently on the 40-man roster, are going to see at least a little bit of time for Los Angeles. I think that includes a guy like a Jack Dreyer. I expect him to make his debut at some point through the season. How that happens, I have no idea, and neither do the Dodgers, as far as how finding a way to be able to fit him onto this roster. But I think, especially if he's pitching as well as he has the past couple of seasons, there will be an opportunity that comes up, because this happens every single year. And especially if the Dodgers don't want to overutilize the guys that are on the roster that they want to rely upon in October, that means not giving every single one of your relievers 60 to 70 innings pitched through the course of the regular season. That means not throwing your starting pitchers 160 plus innings throughout the course of the regular season. That you will need to fill in some innings, and I think the first guys that they will likely turn to, especially if they are pitching well, will be some of the guys that have grown and developed and earned an opportunity, like you're seeing right here, a Jack Dreyer. There's a reason why he is on the 40-man roster, and because he has absolutely kicked the door down and earned that opportunity.
Can you go through some of his numbers, just how incredible Jack Dreyer's been? Now, keep in mind, this is a young man out of Iowa. In 2019, went to the University of Iowa, came out of the gates really good at Iowa, beat Oklahoma State as a freshman, and then hurt his shoulder, and then was out for the rest of 2019. Then 2020 canceled all of the college baseball season for him. And then in 2021, he had Tommy John. And so he hadn't pitched basically other than a couple of innings since high school. Now, he was incredible there at Johnston High School in Iowa. Actually set a Iowa Secondary Schools Activities Association amount of strikeouts for a championship game with 13 there. So we know his swing and miss has always been there. And so coming into 2021, he just hadn't pitched hardly at all. And the Dodgers took a chance on him. They signed him as an undrafted free agent. And Jack Dreyer bet on himself. Jack Dreyer's dad pitched for the Texas Rangers on the same team as Nolan Ryan. Matter of fact, Jack Dreyer's dad actually played for the Oklahoma City 89ers at the old All Sports Stadium that we talked about the other day with Alex Friedman. And so this is a guy that didn't pitch basically from high school, just a little bit at Iowa, and then just splashed onto the scene in 2023 as a professional and just has not even had yet a period of struggle whatsoever. Jack Dreyer, the Maytag.
Yeah, the Maytag is amazing in what he's able to do. As you had mentioned, really the first time that we had a chance to see him in affiliate ball was in 2023 during his season in Great Lakes. And I don't know why you're not having his showcase, whether he's screaming at the Dayton Dragons after getting them out in an intense game or going through and finishing the last, I believe, 4 outs to finish off the Fort Wayne Tin Caps to win the Midwest League East Division title. Those would be some great highlights to be able to show. 2023, Jack Dreyer had one of the best relief seasons, if not the best relief season in Great Lakes Loons history. The high A affiliate of the Los Angeles Dodgers put up a 2.30 ERA. Strikeout percentage was ridiculous at about 35%. Just unreal numbers that he was able to have. Opponents only hit 169 off of him. Dominant left-handed reliever that he got better and better and better through the course of the regular season to where hitters just couldn't see the ball and they just weren't able to hit it at all. Got moved up at the start of 2024, rightly so, to Double-A Tulsa, and it took them 9 games to say, yeah, he needs to be up in Oklahoma City. During his time in Tulsa, did not give up an earned run. Yeah. He not a single earned run, and he was striking out almost 38% of hitters during his time up there. See ya. Go ahead and have fun in Oklahoma City. And when he got up to Oklahoma City, he continued to have the success that he has always had at the minor league level to this point of his career, putting up an ERA under 3, 2.95 in Oklahoma City. His strikeout percentage during his time at Oklahoma City was about 30%, 29.9%, and he walked about 5% of hitters. Extremely good balance.
Say that again.
And he was struck out 30% and walked 5% and put up an ERA under 3 in one of the most hitter-friendly environments in the Pacific Coast League that there is. Unbelievable stuff Jack Dreyer has, and you just watch him pitch and watch him go. As we mentioned every time we talk about him, he is not just a great pitcher, and he's not just over-reliant on pure dominant stuff, which he has really solid stuff. Is his intelligence that he's able to outwit hitters and outsmart a whole lot of players that makes him just so incredibly dominant to the point where the Dodgers saw a soon-to-be 26-year-old left-handed reliever that they don't have a lot of 40-man roster spots, and they intentionally chose to add him onto the 40-man roster for a very specific reason. That's because Jack Dreyer is absolutely amazing at what he's able to do from the left side, throwing left-handed out of the bullpen, and can pitch in a lot of high-leverage innings if needed.
You ever know somebody that's like the sweetest human being in the world, and then all of a sudden you put them in between the lines of a competition, and it's like, wow, that person just transformed. I mean, like they're the nicest person over here, and then they're like the most competitive, meanest human being in the history of time when they're on the mound. That is Jack Dreyer. Like you talk to him, and you're like, well, this is some kind of like the choir boy that, you know, maybe, I don't know, not a competitive sports guy, and then you go watch him pitch, and you're like, wow, that dude is massively competitive. That it just very, very, very impressive. So we got off on Jack Dreyer there for a minute. I'll never apologize for doing that because I will talk about Jack Dreyer any day, twice on Sunday. So we have a question here from Instagram about Kyle Hurt, whether we think he is coming back or not. And I actually do have quite a bit of information on him that I can't release and I'm not going to release. So what we're going to do about him is I'll just say this. He has started throwing and all that. And I do think that Kyle Hurt will be back this year. I'll just make that statement. Beyond that, let me push that over. I'm going to say, if I were to predict, of course, and I was totally wrong on Andy Pages last year, because I do not ask about injuries. I don't pry. I don't message coaches. I don't. So really, as many resources as I have in the Dodgers minor league system, which without actually being a part of it probably is just about as many resources as you could possibly have, I'm not the one to ask about injuries and when they're coming back, because I just don't go fact gathering and news gathering, and I don't want guys to feel like I'm trying to pry information out of them from that perspective. I just want this to be more of we're trying to promote and highlight and do that kind of thing for these players. But I say all that like I always do. Make a short story long, Austin, to say I do think Kyle Hurt will be back. I would say August, September.
If he is back during that time frame, or whenever he does come back, be ready. Kyle Hurt is going to be something special. We talked about him a lot during the 2023-2024 offseason, just how excited we were. The Dodgers got the chance to see that during the end of the 2023 regular season when he went up and struck out everybody against the San Diego Padres. His stuff is ridiculous, and whenever he does come back, he's going to go out there and he's going to shove. Give him a little bit of time. Make sure that he's healthy, ready to go. And once he is, watch out. Kyle Hurt is really good.
Yeah. Man, we have a great conversation going on. Hey, Dorothy Gale absolutely has a Class A comment. Here's the thing about Ohtani, and hey, we just said it with Walker Buehler. It's been said that however long you're out, you need that amount of time to actually get back and actually get to where you need to be. So however long Ohtani's out, just add that up. But it's Ohtani, so shrink that down a little bit.
Yeah.
So I love what Dorothy's saying here is that, man, just temper your expectations for this guy, right? I mean, I know he's Shohei Ohtani, but he still is coming off of injury, and it's still a very difficult game. So if he goes out there and he doesn't look like Nolan Ryan, like from the first pitch of the season, I totally agree with what Dorothy Gale is saying here is just temper your expectations a little bit as far as what you might see. Now, saying that, he's Shohei Ohtani, and he might go out and be Jack Dreyer and never even need an adjustment period and just slay people from the start, throw swords from basically the very first pitch that he throws.
Yeah, it is hard to doubt Shohei Ohtani in this, but also there is going to be value in just being able to provide innings. If that's all that Shohei Ohtani is going to be able to do is allows them to have a bonus pitcher that's going to eat up some innings for the Dodgers staff, I expect him to be a lot better than that. But even if that is all that he is, there's an incredible amount of value that Shohei Ohtani is going to be able to provide. Be patient with that. Don't expect the world out of him right away, but when he does provide that, or if he does provide that, it's going to be amazing to be able to watch. Shohei Ohtani is a special baseball player, and there's a reason why there's insanely high expectations, because he has as much talent as any single human being has ever had in the game of baseball. Just wait and see, and we'll see what happens. And I'm excited to be there and enjoy the ride of having a bonus pitcher, the likes of Shohei Ohtani.
So let's get back to the bullpen talk for about a couple more minutes. So we've talked about Kirby Yates, Tanner Scott. Is kind of recap here to get back into the conversation. You think the Dodgers bullpen is easily the best bullpen in baseball, right? Was that your statement?
I think it is as talented as any single bullpen in the game of baseball. And I think if you put it in a postseason environment, they have as many weapons as any team in the game of baseball that can pitch in those high leverage situations. I don't know if they'll have, and I actually probably wouldn't necessarily predict them to have, like, for example, the lowest ERA as a bullpen this upcoming season.
Oh, really?
Particularly because I think they're going to be strategic in how they implement a lot of these arms, and they want as many of these arms to be healthy in October. Well, once it gets to October, all bets are off. This team has as good of weapons as it possibly can, because we've talked about Tanner Scott. We've talked about Kirby Yates, the two new additions to this bullpen. That's added on top of all of the high leverage arms besides Walker Buehler, who pitched the last inning of the World Series. Besides him, they have all the high leverage arms from their bullpen, basically from last year, aside from like a Ryan Brazier, who wasn't always utilized in the high leverage situations. They have a Blake Trinan, who was still a highly effective, high leverage type of reliever last year. Last year put up some just pretty ridiculous numbers with what he was able to do last season. If I can pull it up and get the Jack Dreyer numbers out of here for just a second. Blake Trinan, what he did last year, another ERA under 2. 193 with his ERA, pitched in a lot of high leverage situations. Last year, pitched 46 innings coming off of injury. Dodgers couldn't have gotten anything better than what he was able to produce, to where he got a 2-year extension to his contract. Another one of these guys that's going to go out there, strike out 30% of hitters, something like that. Blake Trinan, you saw what he did in Game 5 of the World Series. It was absolutely unreal, and he might be number 3 in line for the high leverage situations, which means they can utilize him in whatever role makes him most effective.
Yeah. And so another factor that goes back to Ohtani being that 14th pitcher is the Dodgers. This is a good point, and I can't remember who it was, just said in the chat that the Dodgers don't necessarily have innings eaters as starters, right? I mean, you don't have a bunch of Landon Knacks that the whole goal is to wake up and you're in the 7th inning, right? The goal is to max out and to not allow anybody to score and then turn the ball over to the bullpen. So the fact that the Dodgers starters are not necessarily quote unquote innings eaters, is there anything to worry about there from a mathematical perspective, Austin?
Not necessarily. There might be some things where you talk about not necessarily innings eaters as far as making the math work for 162, but I think this is the most effective way to be able to get to October. And one of the ways that you can go about and combat that is just by having a whole lot of arms. And the Dodgers have stockpiled a whole lot of different arms to where the guys not on the 40-man that are pretty close and still really good, or some of the guys that they've invited to spring training could help fill in some innings as well. I think, and this is a trend with the game of baseball, they have turned to trying to find ways to, even if it's shorter stints, this is exactly like the Blake Snell approach. He goes out there and tries to get the hitter out, or tries to make sure he doesn't give up the mistake pitch. And he's going to live with the walks. He's going to live with some of those because he's not going to give up the mistake pitch. And next thing you know, even if it's only 5 innings, he's not going to give up any runs, or he's going to give up 1 or 2 runs. I think that's the type of approach that you're going to be looking for a lot of these different guys. The Dodgers bullpen and their relievers are really good, and the Dodgers know what they're doing, and they're going to approach the strategy that they believe is going to give up in the long term and in the short term the least amount of runs. And I think that's the strategy that they're implementing.
So I kind of wanted to show this here and just kind of click this over. We have a comment about fans complaining about the Dodgers killing baseball, right? Well, here is the payroll. So if you actually look, last year, the Dodgers were the 5th highest, right? Okay, New York Mets at $314 million. New York Yankees, the Dodgers beat both of them at $308. That goes to show you it's not just 100%. Houston Astros actually had a higher salary schedule last year. The Major League Philadelphia Phillies had all teams that the Dodgers beat out on their way. The Braves were very close. The Cubs were very close. The Rangers were very close, right? And then if you look at, let me point this over, $1.9 billion in sponsor revenue. And Major League Baseball is a sport to where these teams, at least as far as the Major League dollar, they share that, right? So these smaller market teams are in a situation to where they have a lot of money. They choose not to spend it. Whenever the Pirates decide to cut a guy, I can't remember the name you said the other day.
Yeah, Rowdy Tellez.
Robbie Tellez, right before he is due for a bonus, that is them just being sorry, because these major league teams, they start with a lot of money in their pocket. So if you are smart enough and you figure out with your prospects and you make good, like the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, I always do that. The Tampa Bay Rays are the perfect case scenario. As a matter of fact, I asked JP Fireeisen when I was it wasn't during it. I think it was during the interview, but I asked him before interview. So you've been with the Rays and you've been with the Dodgers. Those two are compared by a lot of people in terms of kind of doing business very similarly, the way they use analytics and how smart they are in all their deals and that kind of thing. And I said, well, what's the difference between the Dodgers and them? And he said, nothing other than the Dodgers do have more money. So, yes, it is an advantage to have more money, but I kind of wanted to show this again right here, that the salary structures, I mean, these teams right here, they should be spending more money. That's all I should say to them, is that they have more money to spend, and in my opinion, they are choosing not to spend their money as wisely. So, yes, you don't have as much money as the Dodgers, but it's a double whammy for you because you don't have as much money, and then also you're not spending it as wisely. So don't penalize the Dodgers for just because they have money. So also you have to praise them on the other side for spending their money wisely as well. But, hey, this has been a great show. We have had just an absolutely great crowd. Let me check in with our Instagram crowd one more time. We've had a big crowd on Instagram. We are on TikTok. We've had a big crowd on TikTok as well. We have a good crowd on Twitter and Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, you name it. And, hey, we have another super chat here from Dai Tran. Thank you so much. Dai Tran says, keep it up. So, Austin, this has been a great show. We've been rambling on here for a little over an hour. Final thoughts?
Yeah, it's been a fun show. We are rapidly approaching the Dodgers starting baseball. It's pitchers and catchers report on Monday. Not a couple Mondays from now, Monday. They're going to be, and we already see reports about a lot of players already reporting to camp. They're already starting. The season is almost here. It is very rapidly approaching. We look up and down this roster. It's incredibly talented. We got to do a little bit of a deep dive into some of the bullpen arms, but we didn't even mention half of the bullpen arms, half the high leverage arms. We just talked about Tanner Scott, Kirby Yates, and mentioned a Blake Trinan. We did not mention a Michael Kopech, who during his time with Los Angeles last year had about a 1.13 ERA during his time in LA and had insane swing and miss stuff. Fits with the profile of what the Dodgers want. Then you go to a guy like an Evan Phillips, who used to be the best reliever that the Dodgers have and could still be this upcoming season, but he's mentioned maybe fifth in the order of the Dodgers bullpen arms that they could utilize. And we talk about utilizing him in those situations. He might come in during the fifth inning and you can feel good about the rest of the game. And then also to mention a guy like an Alex Vesia, who last year, during coming in from the offseason, there was not high expectations on Alex Vesia. He went out and through the course of the season, 1.76 ERA. All of these arms are adding up to put up together an incredible bullpen. The Dodgers have a lot of resources, a lot of different arms that they can use through the course of the season to be able to get guys out. How they manage that and how they get through the 2025 season with these arms and get them through healthy so that each one of these guys is a weapon in October is a little bit of a mystery, a little bit of, I don't know what's going to happen. That's what makes 162 games fun, and we are rapidly approaching not necessarily 162 games, but the 30 or so games that is going to lead up to that in spring training. And it first starts on Monday with the Dodgers pitchers and catchers reporting, and then on the 20th, games will start. Dodgers versus Cubs in Camelback Ranch. Super excited about that.
Okay, Austin, I have one more chore for you here. We have a Instagram question about this guy right here, Dalton Rushing. Can you pull his stats up right quick and just kind of get some analytics on him? I've talked over and over and over about what I like about this guy. Just Charlie Hustle, man. I mean, just the way he plays. Matter of fact, Dennis Higgins, and this, I recorded this because I loved it. This was actually a part of a Tulsa Drillers broadcast I ripped. And if you actually hear the audio, it's Dennis Higgins talking about Dalton Rushing. Matter of fact, I might just play that audio, see if I can get to it, and see if the audio's on there, and see if you can hear it.
Love the way that guy plays the game of baseball. He's got that Pete Rose mentality.
One more time.
Love the way that guy plays the game of baseball. He's got that Pete Rose mentality.
So let me go ahead and mute that right there. So that is Dennis Higgins, a play-by-play voice for the Tulsa Drillers, talking about Dalton Rushing and how he has the Pete Rose mentality. Now, the background on Dennis Higgins is that he has been all over baseball forever. He's been doing baseball, for so long. He is widely renowned as one of the best and most experienced broadcasters at any level. John Miller, the San Francisco play-by-play guy, will tell you point blank, probably the best broadcaster in baseball is Dennis Higgins. If you have not listened to a Tulsa Drillers game, do yourself a favor. He is just absolutely incredible, him and Bruce Howard. So for him to go on and say he has that Pete Rose mentality about Dalton Rushing, I will bet you that the organization was watching that and was like, well, if that's Dennis Higgins' idea of Dalton Rushing after watching him every day, that's pretty darn good. So I wanted to play that.
Yeah, no, that is awesome, and he has earned that with the type of play that he has, with the style, with the performance that he has gone and put out there. Dalton Rushing is phenomenal, and there's a reason why he's as highly regarded as he is. It's not just because he's a catcher within this organization. He is a catcher, and he's a really solid catcher at that too. He goes out there and he mashes the baseball, and it started once he got to this organization and hit 424 in 128 plate appearances during a month stretch in Rancho Cucamonga in 2022, the year that the Dodgers drafted him. Ridiculous. It continued during the 2023 season when he was part of that historic team for Great Lakes and went out and put up 146 WRC plus during that season, hit 15 home runs, continued on with the next season. Last year, hit 26 home runs combined with his numbers in Tulsa and Oklahoma City, AA and AAA. And during the combined numbers, hit a 142 WRC plus. Walks a lot. His strikeout numbers are about 20% last year. Look at the totals that he had. He is an unreal hitter. He has a winning mentality and helps bring up the players around him. He desperately wants to win each and every single game that he has, and he has that exact same expectation for every single player that he interacts with. I love that about Dalton Rushing. He goes out there and plays the game as hard as he possibly can. He is a winning baseball player, and he's a great baseball player at that. So, talk about Dalton Rushing. We regard him super highly because of what we've seen, and it's rightly so with what he has, and rightly so that other people have him as highly regarded. How the Dodgers are able to make this piece fit at the major league level is going to be a real question. Having Will Smith, having two established corner outfielders with the Dodgers right now, but the Dodgers would be wise. As I stated, he was the guy that I talked about at the start of the offseason during the first show that we did. Hold on,
Austin. Hold on a second, Austin. My bad. I hate to cut you off there, but hold on. You know who that is right there? That's Kumar Rocker right there, baby. Kumar Rocker. This is Kumar Rocker versus Dalton Rushing, and I had my popcorn, and I was ready to go. So if you want to see Dalton Rushing hit off a Kumar Rocker, watch this right here. You ready?
You got it.
3, 2, 1, Dalton Rushing. See ya. Oh, he dinked it into center field.
Oh, yeah.
But I'll take it. I
yeah.
thought you might want to see a hit of Dalton Rushing off of Kumar Rocker. I thought I'd set you up a little bit there.
Oh yeah, no, that's awesome.
That's
no, he's a really good baseball player. Mentioned him. He was one of the players that I had mentioned as being one of the keys of the offseason to start this offseason. How the Dodgers navigate this offseason could help set up what their future plans are for Dalton Rushing. I'm excited to see how they're able to implement, because I think if they give Dalton Rushing the time, they give him the ability to be able to do so, he could be one of those guys that the Dodgers could be extremely happy with. They made the investment in Dalton Rushing because I believe he is that good, that type of player. Reason why they didn't trade him during the trade deadline during 2024 and potential talks with a player potentially like a Garrett Crochet. It's because they love the talent that is Dalton Rushing, and they want to do everything that they can or to keep him around and hopefully present him with an opportunity to be able to be successful at the major league level. I'm so excited for what he's able to do this upcoming season. Rush is a great human being and a phenomenal baseball player.
Again, not my words. Dennis Higgins, the play-by-play voice of Tulsa, who has just been around professional baseball forever, and he is very unbiased. His words, he has that Pete Rose mentality. Hey, I wanted to give a standing ovation to Larry Partridge, who is in our crowd tonight. Larry Partridge saw a doubleheader in the Coliseum at Los Angeles against the Milwaukee Braves, who started Warren Spahn against Don Drysdale, and Sandy Koufax started game 2. Larry Partridge, I bow down to you. Wow. Those are the kind of stories that, see, baseball is the most romantic sport on earth, and it's because you go with your dad or your uncle or your mom or whatever, and you go see Sandy Koufax in an old stadium. They don't even play it anymore, and it's like an event that you remember in your childhood that it's bigger than life, right? I mean, baseball just, it gets in your blood, and then the next thing you know, you just want to do it every day, you know?
Yeah, no, you never know what you'll be able to see when you go to a baseball field, and seeing something as spectacular as that, absolutely amazing. Some of the reasons why Casey and I, and then every single person that's in the crowd, loves the game of baseball is for stuff like that. Stuff like that is phenomenal. The entire atmosphere with the game of baseball is amazing, to where it's a couple days after Groundhog Day in the middle of February, and we're having fun talking about baseball, even though there hasn't been a baseball game in a couple months. And we just love the game of baseball that much. More
spring or more winter? I can't remember.
Oh, we get 6 more weeks of winter, man. Groundhog is predicting 6 more weeks of winter, which not great news for us here in the state of Michigan. We take Groundhog Day really seriously. That Groundhog is he's never wrong, and we get 6 more weeks of winter.
Not only can Larry Partridge get a standing ovation, can I get a standing ovation? I finally got through an entire YouTube live in the last week without something screwing up on me. So I need a standing ovation. I need some love. I need a pat on my back. I need something, because I'm pretty excited about that. And then also all new artwork. All new artwork. Well, hold on a second. Let me show you. See that new banner right there? Austin's got a new banner coming too. So all new artwork and got everything jazzed up. So I'm in a pretty good mood about that. I thought I'd give myself a standing ovation. I'm that kind of guy.
Yeah, no mistakes is a very good thing.
It is a very good thing.
It is very good, especially in the game of baseball where there's so much failure. You had no failure this week. You're batting 1,000 right now. So that's pretty good.
Yeah. Yankees, I'll say this. Yankees whining about other teams is about the funniest thing I have ever heard of in my life. Everybody have a good night. It's a great day to be a Dodger.